of time to choose that doctor because you cannot make a mistake here. So I have known people, let me give you a wonderful story. I was speaking for one of the biggest insurance companies in the world in Chicago. And I had given a seminar, and then I was going back to the airport. And they said, would you like to share a limousine with one of our top executives, vice president? And I said, of course. So I went, I got in the limousine, and there's this top executive. And it's a big limousine, one of those, like the ones that people in government have. You know what I'm talking about. And he said, he introduced himself to me, and his name was Ron Grantham. And I just read in the paper that he died recently. But as we went out to the airport, it was a 45-minute drive, I asked him questions about himself, and he told me the most fascinating story. He said that he had started off as an insurance salesman, and then he had his own little agency for Northwestern Mutual Life Insurance Company, and he was hiring and recruiting people. And his agency grew, and his people were considered to be some of the best people in the insurance company, the insurance industry. So they called him in and they said, how is it that you are able to choose to recruit so many good people? And he said, well, he has this system, plus he has an instinct. He has a special intuition for hiring people. And they said, would you like to come and work for our company in head office, and we will pay you a very high salary if you will use your skills to help us recruit people. And so they moved him to the head office. They paid him an enormous amount of money. They made him rich. He became a multimillionaire. And his only job was to go around and interview people and then to say yes or no, this would be a good person for our company. And because of this one skill in recruiting, he became one of the most successful and most respected people in the entire insurance industry. When I read about it, it was in the paper. It was in the national newspapers that this man had died, and how sorry everybody was because he was a genius at selecting people. Now, what is my point? My point is that everybody starts at the bottom and cannot do the job very well at all, and then with practice, they move up the ladder of success until they become excellent. You can become absolutely excellent at choosing people just by simply learning how and practicing it over and over and going slow when you hire people. This is long-term thinking. This is slow thinking. And if you get really good at hiring people, that alone can make you a big success in your business. The best executives have the best ability to hire people to work with them. They don't do the work themselves. They just find the right people and select those people. So this is really important. Never hire quickly. Go slowly. Think about it. Write down the description before you talk to the people. Interview them more than once. Check their backgrounds carefully, because selecting key people is the key to your future. So we say, B, the manager's output is the output of the team. It is the team that determines your success. It's the people that work with you, not you, because you can't do everything. So building the team is vital. So we say, see, take the time to hire carefully and well. Take the time to hire carefully, like you're doing surgery on an eyeball. Take the time to do it carefully. Now, Stanford University, the Faculty of Business at Stanford, which is one of the 5 or 6 most respected in the world, did a 30-year study. And they reported on this study, and they looked at people who went from the bottom to the top and became the top of major corporations in their careers. And then they went back to try to figure out what skills they had that were most important for their success. And they looked at many different skills, but the one that was the most important they found was team building. It was when they were junior employees, they were good team players. They really helped the company and they worked well with other people. They always raised their hand and volunteered for more responsibility. Remember, in any team or group of people, the top 20% do 80% of the work. They immediately joined the top 20% by offering to do the work and then doing it quickly and well. As a result, what happened? They were given an assistant, and then another assistant, and then more people, and more responsibility. And they began to rise, and soon they were in charge of a department. Then they were in charge of a division. And then they became in charge of the whole company. And at every stage, it was their ability to recruit people and build teams that was the most important ingredient of their success. Remember, you cannot do the work yourself, so you have to recruit other people to do it. I hope I am not emphasizing this too much because it is very important. All of your problems in your business will come from having chosen the wrong people to help you. All your success will come from choosing the right people. Now, number 4 is delegation. And this is an important skill, and the top companies teach their people delegation in 2- and 3-day intensive seminars and workshops. I have found that most managers have never taken a course on delegation. They've never read a book on delegation. They think that delegation is simple, like drinking a glass of water. So they say, you do this, and you do that, and you do the other thing. Okay, I have now delegated. I have full-day courses on delegation, and delegation is not like that. Delegation is one of the most vital things that you do for business success. And so we say, A, what is the task to be accomplished? We go back to our friend clarity again. We think, what is the work that needs to be done? And you become absolutely clear. Then you look around and say, who is the ideal person to do this job? The ideal person is someone who has previous success experience. They have done this job or something like this job in the past, and they've done it well. It's very dangerous to give an important job to a person with no success experience, because the chances are they will fail. And if they fail, you fail. So therefore you ask, who do I know who has the proven experience or competence to do this new job? And then you sit down with them and you explain clearly what you want them to do. Then you ask them to explain it back to you. Okay, I've described the job. Now you describe the job back to me. The reason I recommend this is because I used to be amazed. I would talk to somebody who's quite competent. I'd say, here's the job, and they'd say, okay, and they'd go away and do something completely different. Or they would miss something vitally important. And then I realized that when you're talking to people, you have a feedback loop going on. I speak to you, you listen, you respond, but then you're thinking about other things. You're thinking about your work and your family and your home. So sometimes what I'm saying to you misses, is you don't catch it. And so then I say, did you understand? You say, yes. We always say to the big boss, we always say, yes, I understand. So what I've started to do, which was amazing, I say, now, please tell me back what I just asked you to do. And I was amazed at 50% or more of the time, what they told me was completely different from what I had told them 2 minutes before. So then I began to ask them, I say, when you come to talk to me, bring a pad, and I will tell you what I want you to do, and I want you to write it down. Okay, I want you to write it down, and I'll tell you slowly, write it down, exactly what it is, how it will be measured, deadlines, best way to do it, and so on. They write it all down. I say, now, read it back to me. And they would read it back, and it would be wrong 50% of the time. So what I found is that you delegate slowly and carefully and make it very clear so the person knows exactly what you want them to do. And then you assign the task. So we say that C is establish standards and measures in school and schedules. Standards and measures and schedules. Remember what we said before, clear goals, clear measures, and clear deadlines or schedules for completion. There's a rule that comes from Shakespeare, and he says, make haste slowly. In other words, if you want to go fast, go slow. If you want to achieve the goal quickly, go slow at this critical point of delegating the task to someone else. Just like the Operation Desert Storm, the battle in Iraq, is the more time that they spent planning, the more guaranteed they were of rapid success. Dwight D. Eisenhower was in charge of the D-Day invasion, which they just celebrated last week. They spent almost 2 years planning that invasion. It had 134,000 men, 10,000 ships, and something like 2,000 or 3,000 aircraft. And it all had to be coordinated all the way along the coast of England. and into England. Everything had to be put together so it was all on schedule. And it took them almost 2 years. But then when he said go, the D-Day invasion was successful the first day and brought the war in Europe to an end within 12 months, actually within about 9 months. But every detail, Eisenhower said, he said the plan fell apart as soon as the troops hit the beaches, but the planning was essential. The planning enabled us to think through everything that might happen and everything that might go wrong so that we had a second plan and a second plan and a third plan. We had backup plans for everything. So whenever something did not work out successfully, we had another plan that was working, and the total result was they achieved a massive victory. Basically destroyed German resistance and won the war. Planning is so important. And that brings us to number 5, which is supervising. Supervising is assuring that the work is done on time and to the required standards. Now, I used to think that people were intelligent and self-responsible, so you give them a job and don't worry about it. No, supervising means that you are like a doctor in the hospital who checks the pulse. Is you check the pulse of the job. The more important the job is, the more you check on a regular basis to make sure that the job is being done on time. So we say delegation is not abdication. Delegation is not abdication. You are still responsible for the results. If you delegate a task and the person does not do the task, who is responsible? You are responsible because you didn't delegate it clearly or you didn't follow up. I remember once I was leaving town for a week and I assigned a task to one of my staff members. I said, it's very important that you get this done as soon as possible. So I came back a week later and I said, well, what happened with the task? And he said, I'm going to start on it next week. I said, it had to be done immediately. He said, you didn't say immediately. You just said as soon as possible. And so I've been busy, so I haven't had a chance to do it yet. And who was to blame there? It was me, because I wasn't clear about when I wanted it done, and I didn't follow up. If it was important, I should have phoned him when I got to the next airport and phoned and said, how is it going? And the next day phoned and said, how is it going? So therefore, keep your hand on the pulse of the work. And the more important the work is, the more important it is that you follow up. Now, B, inspect what you expect. If you expect someone to do it, inspect it. Now, here's what we have discovered. There's a combination, it's a dynamic combination as a manager. It's called the combination of control plus freedom. You want to give people enough freedom to do the work, but you also want to keep control of the work. And what we found is that if you ask about the job, it's very simple. How is it going? How is everything going? If you have a problem, come back to me, but basically, and then when you supervise, how is everything going? If they know that you're going to ask, they're much more likely to do the job on time. If you don't ask, you suggest that this job is not that important. And so they don't do it on time and they don't do it well. So if you have a certain amount of control by checking on a regular basis and then you give them freedom, it's the best combination for most people. And finally, C, set up a regular schedule for reporting. Is make sure that if it's going to be every Friday at 3 o'clock, they report to you every Friday at 3 o'clock. If it's going to be Monday morning, then make sure they report to you at that time. If they know they have to report on a regular basis, they will do the job. They don't want to report and tell you that they are not making progress. And this brings us to the 6th key skill, which is measuring. Now, we talked about that before. In planning, you set clear goals and measures. Here, it's the same key variable, but you need to have standards of performance, metrics, and benchmarks for each key result. Everybody needs to know the numbers. Now, here's a rule that I just learned. In business, if you want successful performance, you have to have numbers that go with each activity. If you want to have top performance, you want to have financial numbers that go with each activity. For example, Amazon, they measure every action by every staff member in seconds. How many seconds does it take to perform a function? So those measures are the numbers, number of seconds. But the key variable is profitability. I have a friend who started a business, worked very hard for 2 years online, and went broke. And he had to move home and live with his family, live with his parents, because he had no money. And he felt sorry for himself for about 6 months. And then he was talking to another business friend of his, and this business friend had a very successful online business. And his business friend asked him, well, what was your critical measure that you looked at every day in your business? He said, what do you mean? He said, well, every company has a critical measure, one number that's more important than any other number in determining the success of the business. What was your number? He said, I have no idea. We never looked at numbers. We just looked at profit or loss and how much money we had in the bank. He said, no, you can't run a business like that. You have to select the most important number. So he went back and he started the same business again, selling language programs online, and his number was profit contribution. What is the profit contribution from each sale? And every single sale was measured. And every person in the company, which began to grow, was measured against their profit contribution. And each product was measured up against profit contribution. Profit contribution was the glaring number for that business. Today, this man's business is $100 million, and he's rich, and he lives in a big house. He said he went bankrupt without a number to look at every hour, every minute. Once they had the number, the whole company became organized around that number. So, my question to you, and this is true in every business and every department, my question to you is, what is your number? What is the most important number in your business that predicts your success or failure? What's the most important number that determines your future? Do you know that number? In my 2-day MBA, I teach about 35 numbers that different companies use. There's probably 40 numbers. And there's about 4 or 5 key numbers, and there's one big number. And everybody must know the number. If you don't know your number, it's like trying to drive to a destination and not knowing the address, not knowing where you're going. Because the number is what measures your success as a business, because all business activities can be measured with numbers. And so you have to pick your number. The number is the destination that you want to reach as a result of your business activities. I work with a large furniture company. This man started many years ago. He's 84 now. He started many years ago with one little store and one little front, and he would not go home until he had sold one piece of furniture. And some say he stayed and sat in front of his store until 9 o'clock at night before he sold one chair. And he would sell one piece of furniture for the day. Today, his company is worth $750 million. He has 42 stores. He just bought another company with 16 stores. Amazing business. And you know what he measures? Whenever I talk to him, I say, how are things going? And he measures market share, percentage of market share. Because all the furniture companies submit their total sales to a central organization each month. And he looks at what percentage of total dollars being spent in his market area on furniture are coming to his company. And if it goes from 13.2% to 13.3%, he is very happy. Everyone in the company is happy. If it goes from 13.2% market share to 13.1%, everybody goes into red alert. They get angry. They start to have meetings. They start, what's the problem? What are the solutions? What do we need to do? So if you only learn one thing from this seminar, is the importance of selecting a number. The key number that is the guiding number in your business, and then watching that number all the time. Come in the morning and watch it. I've built shopping centers, and one of my tenants was a very successful pizza restaurant owner. He had 6 restaurants, and he had a sense. He was an amazing man because he made a lot of money from pizza restaurants. He built beautiful restaurants, not cheap restaurants, but beautiful restaurants, and they were always full. And he told me some of his strategies. I said, well, how do you determine your success? Well, in pizza business, when you get an order for pizza, you write it on a slip, and then you put it on a spike. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? You put the order on the spike. So his measure for success, and he would walk into a restaurant and look at the spike, and look at how many orders there were on the spike. That was the critical measure. His whole goal was to increase the number of orders on the spike. And when he decided to open a new restaurant, he would go and look at other restaurants to see how many orders they had on the spike. If they had a lot of orders on the spike, he knew this was a good market for pizza. So he would build a restaurant. And that was his measure, and it made him rich. It made him rich because he knew the measure. It wasn't the size of each order, it was the number of orders on the spike, the number of orders that they had sold that day. So what is your number? And if you don't know the number, sit down. And you know what I have found is that most people don't know their number, and most people are confused about their number. And if you have more than one person in the company, they all have a different idea. They say, sales is our number. That's pretty simple. No, it's not. No, it's not. Sales is not your number. If you think sales are your number, your competition should be really happy because you'll soon be out of business. Have you ever seen a story in the paper about a company that has very high sales, billions of dollars, and then they report huge losses? Have you seen that? Hundreds of millions of dollars in losses, shutting down factories and stores, laying off 10,000 people. Saw a company last week laid off 10,000 people. Was it Hewlett-Packard? Yes, Hewlett-Packard. One of the biggest computer companies in the world had sales of $60 billion, laid off, lost $4 billion, laid off 10,000 people. Why? It's because those idiots say, well, sales is our goal. We'll get sales. Yes, sales is the goal. And they got $60 billion in sales last year, and they're in serious trouble. Why is that? It's because they didn't look at the cost of sales. How much is it costing us to get new customers in terms of advertising, promotion, commissions, discounts, givebacks, rebates? How much is it costing? And it turns out that for every dollar of new sales, they were actually paying $1.25. So the more sales they got, the faster they went broke. Are you with me so far? So don't be, some people say, oh, it's just sales. We know, just sales is our number. Ha! It's profitability per sale. It's net profit contribution per sale that was this person's number, but what is yours? I go into companies and they pay me a lot of money, I'm happy to say. They pay me a lot of money to take them through this exercise and help them become crystal clear about that number, and the company transforms. Changes in authority, changes in strategy, changes in advertising, changes in pricing. Everything changes when you change the number. Are you with me so far? It's really important. By the way, we teach this in our 2-day MBA. It's just one of the things that we teach you exactly how to identify that number. And sometimes that one idea transforms a business. I've seen companies that have gone from bankruptcy to high levels of profitability by just changing their number. And this becomes the number that everybody in the company focuses on. So we say, what gets measured gets done. In other words, if you want something to get done, set a measure so everybody can aim at it. Remember the old rule, you cannot hit a target that you can't see. If everybody in the company knows what your target is, then everybody can focus on the target. B, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. If you don't have a number, you cannot be a good manager. And C, determine how you will recognize excellent performance. In other words, this was the third ingredient in the 20-year study of 22,000 companies. First was clear goals and objectives. Number 2 was clear measures of performance. And number 3 was rewards for excellent performance. So whenever you set up your systems, you say, what will people who are really excellent get extra as a bonus? I was listening to an interview with Jack Welch, who was the president who built General Electric from $4 billion a year to $160 billion a year and made it one of the most successful companies in the world. He said, we have a performance-based culture. In a performance-based culture, people are rewarded well for getting great financial results. And they're rewarded even better for getting even better results. We hire people at $25,000 a year, but after 5 or 10 years, they can be earning $500,000 a year or even $1 million a year based on performance. So one of the most important things you do is you reward your very best people. You give them big prizes and bonuses. The most successful companies have very generous reward systems for the top 10 or 20% of their performers. Number 7 is reporting. And this is making sure that all key people are informed about progress and results. It's so important that the people around you know what you're doing. Many people have complained to me that they got passed over for promotion even though they did a great job, and somebody who was not as good as them got the job, got the new job. But the problem is that the person who was doing the good job wasn't telling anybody. They were maybe filing written reports. And most top executives are too busy to read written reports. So they would put in a report once a month about how well they were doing, and nobody would read it. And so they never got credit. So here's the rule. Report your results upward, report sideways, and report to your staff downward. We say, A, keep your boss informed. Some bosses are visual. They like to see reports. Some are auditory. They like to hear reports. Find out if your boss likes to receive information visually, written down, or does your boss like to receive information spoken? Because if you talk to a boss who likes to see it in writing, he won't hear you. If you show a boss who likes to hear it, he won't read it. So find out, and this is a great discovery, by the way, that is life-changing. I told you I used to work for this big executive who owned 200 companies. He built his fortune to $800 million, by the way, starting with nothing. Almost a billionaire. Today, he would be worth about $2 or $3 billion. Unfortunately, he died of lung cancer. But when I would report to him, it was easy for me, so I would just tell him verbally what I was doing. And then when I spoke to them next time, he would be angry with me because he had misunderstood something I said or he did not hear it. And then I noticed that every time I spoke to him, he made notes. And I realized he likes to write things down. And I didn't know what I was doing then. I only discovered this later. From then on, when I met with him, I wrote down everything. Even if I wrote it by hand and made a photocopy, I brought him a list of the subjects I wanted to discuss. And he would look at this list and he would keep his hand on it. I just remember he would sit there and talk to me, and he would run his hand down each item. He read the list, and he kept those lists. And my whole career turned around. It went from him being irritable with me or us having disagreements to success for the next 2 years. So find out how your boss likes to process information. Keep your staff informed on a regular basis. One of the great motivators in business is people like to be told what's going on. They like to know everything that affects their job. If you are not currently holding weekly staff meetings, begin immediately. Begin on Monday. I have studied meetings. I've done a whole book on meetings. I've done one-day courses on meetings. Your ability to run a meeting well can determine your success or failure in work. Many people have been passed over for promotion and even fired because they don't understand how to use a meeting for communication. Here's the most important thing: hold regular meetings. Circular meetings where everybody can see everyone's face, and have meetings where you make announcements, meetings where you solve problems, or meetings where you just basically go around the table and ask everybody what they're doing and what their plans are for the coming week. I have worked with companies that have gone from near bankruptcy to great profitability, who had never held meetings amongst their staff, began holding meetings once or twice a week. And within months, the company turned around. So if you're not holding regular staff meetings, it's important that you begin holding them every week. Every week at a regular time, from 8:30 to 9:30, from 10 to 11, hold a meeting. Have an agenda. Have everybody in the room talk about what they're doing and ask questions and share their problems. And then, like a coach, say, good, let's go, play the game. And when you start to have weekly meetings, you will be amazed at the transformation that takes place in your business. People are more open, they're more creative, they're more positive. I could tell you so many stories that would make you actually cry from these meetings. People said, we never had meetings here before. Nobody ever knew what the other people were doing. No one knew why we were doing this. No one knew what our results were. Nobody knew about our sales or profits. Nobody knew about the problems that were holding us back. Nobody knew these things because they never had meetings. So your job is to hold regular meetings and keep everybody informed. And finally, C, we say practice the no surprises principle. Now, no surprises means what? It means no surprises. With your boss, make sure that if something happens that is unexpected or negative, your boss hears about it first. Send him an email, send him a voicemail, but make sure your boss finds it out from you, not from someone else. When I worked for this big company, because I would always raise my hand and accept responsibility, I got more and more work to do. As I did the work, I began to rise up and earn more money. I was given a bigger office, and then the biggest office in the company, other than that of the big boss. The big boss had the biggest office, but I had the second biggest office. And there were people in my company who were jealous of me, of course, because they like to come in at the last minute and go for long lunches and leave early and so on, where I would come in early, I would work all day, and I would not leave until 7 or 8 o'clock at night. So they were always looking